What if a whole crew could die at once, without a storm, without a fire, without a single wound that makes sense? No struggle recorded. No warning shouted. Just a ship drifting in quiet water, carrying dozens of bodies frozen in terror, as if something invisible stepped on board and turned life off like a switch. That is the legend of the Ourang Medan. A ship with no survivors. A final message that reads like a nightmare. And a mystery that, depending on who you ask, is either an unsolved maritime horror or a story that should never have existed in the first place. Start with the radio. In the late 1940s, somewhere near the Strait of Malacca, multiple ships reportedly picked up a distress signal. It wasn't a normal call for help. It came in broken phrases, short, mechanical, like the sender was fighting time. All officers, including captain, dead, lying in chartroom and bridge, possibly whole crew dead. Then another line, even stranger. I die. And then silence. That's the first detail that hooks you, because it's not a movie line, it's too blunt, too simple. If it's real, it's the last sentence a human being sent into the world. Now imagine you're on one of the ships that hears it. You steer toward the signal, you find a vessel drifting. No flag you recognize, no friendly response, no movement, just a ship sitting on the sea like it's waiting. Boarding parties, according to later accounts, step onto the deck and feel something is wrong immediately. Not just no one's here. More like, no one should be here. Bodies are scattered. In hallways, on the bridge, in the radio room, not piled up like they died together in one place, more like they dropped where they stood. And the faces. This is the detail that keeps the story alive. The dead are said to have wide eyes, mouths open, arms raised or extended, as if they saw something coming toward them, as if the last emotion that hit their nervous systems was pure alarm. There are reportedly no obvious injuries. No blood, no signs of a fight, no broken doors, no bullet holes, no knife marks. And then the ship begins to warm. Below deck, there's smoke, or heat, something wrong in the hold. The rescuers decide to tow the ship, because the only way to understand what happened is to bring it in. But before they can, the Ourang Medan allegedly erupts. Fire, explosion, the ship breaks apart and sinks. Whatever evidence was there is swallowed by the sea. If you're trying to build a mystery, that is almost perfect. A terrifying event, a cryptic message, a ship full of clues, and then a clean reset. The ocean closes the case. But here's where it gets even stranger. Because the Ourang Medan story isn't just a ghost ship. It comes with specifics that sound practical, almost technical. People who retell it often suggest causes that could kill a crew fast without leaving obvious injuries. One possibility is poison gas. Ships carry cargo. Some cargo is unstable. If the Ourang Medan was transporting chemicals, a leak could have filled compartments with something deadly. Something that knocks you out. Something that stops your breathing. Something that makes you stumble up onto the deck, desperate for air, only to collapse a few steps later. Another possibility is carbon monoxide. It's invisible. It binds to your blood more strongly than oxygen. It can make you confused, panicked, weak. It can kill you quietly. In enclosed areas, it's ruthless. Or maybe it was a fumigation accident. Ships sometimes use toxic gases to kill pests. If a fumigant was released incorrectly, if ventilation failed, if someone entered the wrong space at the wrong time, the whole crew could be exposed before anyone understood what was happening. Then there's the detail about the heat and the explosion. That can also fit a chemical scenario. Certain substances react violently with water or air. Some create pressure, some ignite. And now you start thinking, maybe the silent death wasn't supernatural. Maybe it was industrial, a chain of small errors that ended in a ship-wide catastrophe. But the coincidence is still hard to swallow. Because it wasn't one sailor. It wasn't a few men near the engine room. It was everyone. Officers and crew, bridge and radio. Even the dog, in some versions, dead with bared teeth. The story keeps daring you to ask, what could hit an entire ship so fast that even the people trained for emergencies couldn't respond? Then you look at the geography. The Strait of Malacca is one of the busiest shipping lanes on Earth. It has a long history of piracy, smuggling, accidents, and strange maritime rumors. If you wanted to hide illegal cargo, you could pass through there. If you wanted to erase a paper trail, you could. So speculation grows. Maybe the ship carried contraband chemicals. Maybe the crew was exposed and someone tried to cover it up. Maybe the rescuers weren't rescuers at all. Maybe the ship was meant to vanish. Or maybe it was something natural. There are places on Earth where gas can escape from the seafloor. Methane seeps exist. In theory, sudden releases can displace oxygen near the surface or change water density. The details are debated, and it's not a neat match, but it's one more thread to pull. One more reason the story feels like it could live in the real world. And if you're the kind of person who can't stop digging, you notice something else. The Ourang Medan isn't anchored to a single official record. It floats through retellings, maritime books, magazine articles, online archives, different dates, different ship names involved in the rescue, different locations, a story that changes shape depending on who's holding it. That doesn't kill the mystery, it deepens it. Because now the mystery is just what happened to the crew. It's why is the story so hard to pin down? In the age of shipping logs, radio monitoring, and naval patrols, how does an entire ship incident leave such a faint paper trail? And this is where real authorities enter the scene. The story became widely known through collections like Vincent Gaddis's book Invisible Horizons, and it later appeared in other popular mystery compilations. It was also discussed in maritime forums and research circles that try to separate sea myths from documented incidents. Skeptical investigators have pointed out a key problem: the lack of verifiable records. Researchers have searched for registration details for a ship named Ourang Medan. They've looked for Lloyd's register entries. They've looked for port records and insurance data. The results don't provide a clean confirmation. Even the reported rescue ships are inconsistent. Some versions mention an American vessel, others a British one. Names shift, details blur. And that matters, because ships are paperwork machines. Names, tonnage, ownership, routes, cargo manifests. A ship that exists leaves bureaucratic footprints. So you start to face a possibility that feels like the floor moving under your feet. What if the Ourang Medan story is not a mystery of death, but a mystery of storytelling? Around this point, the dominant scientific and historical approach steps in, not with a dramatic reveal, but with a slow dismantling. Most experts don't treat the Ourang Medan as a solved paranormal case. They treat it as unverified, a legend that may have grown out of smaller truths, misreports, or deliberate fabrication. The supposed radio messages are a good example. Distress calls were real in that era, but the specific wording is hard to authenticate. Without original radio logs, you can't know if the famous phrases were recorded at the time or added later because they sound unforgettable. Then there's the sinking. A ship exploding and disappearing is convenient, but it's also a common myth mechanism. It removes evidence. It prevents follow-up. It turns a questionable report into an untouchable tragedy. And the bodies with terrified faces. That detail might not mean what it seems. Sudden death can leave muscles in odd positions. Decomposition can distort expressions. Eyelids can retract. Mouths can fall open. People can look afraid, even when fear had nothing to do with it. Science doesn't need a monster to explain why a corpse looks wrong. Biology is enough. So the mainstream explanation becomes, there isn't enough reliable data to claim the core event happened as described. The simplest answer might be that the story is a collage, a blend of maritime anxieties, chemical dangers, and the human love of a perfect chilling detail. But that's not the end, because skepticism has its own uncomfortable gaps. If the Ourang Medan is pure invention, why does it persist so stubbornly? Why do people keep reporting that multiple ships received the call? Why does the narrative feel like it's orbiting something real, like a rumor built around a vanished file? And if it's based on a real incident, why is the documentation so thin? The late 1940s were not a clean era for records in that region. The world was reshaping after World War II. Shipping was chaotic. Smuggling existed. Military cargo moved quietly. Not everything was meant for public archives. And the chemical explanations, while plausible, still struggle with the scale described. Carbon monoxide could kill in enclosed spaces, but an entire crew across open decks and bridge areas at the same time is harder to fit. Some fumigants could spread, but you'd expect at least a few survivors or at least a clearer pattern. Even the illegal cargo theory is a guess that can't prove itself. It explains missing paperwork by assuming missing paperwork. It's a loop. So you're left in a gray zone. On one side, a story with the shape of a true disaster. Radio calls, a boarding, a deadly mystery, an explosion. On the other, the hard demand of evidence. Registries, logs, verified dates, confirmed ship identities. And in the middle is the ocean, which is the perfect place for uncertainty to breed. The sea doesn't preserve witnesses, it erases them. It turns hardware into rust, paper into pulp, and certainty into salt. Maybe the Ourang Medan was a real ship, and the crew died from something human and chemical and horribly mundane. Maybe it was a smaller accident that got rewritten with each retelling until it became a myth with a signature line. I die. Or maybe it's a warning disguised as a story. Not about ghosts, but about how easily you can be convinced by details that feel real. How a few concrete images can trick your brain into building an entire event. Because the scariest thing might not be an invisible force on a drifting deck. It might be the thought that you can stare into an empty horizon, hear a final message in your mind, and realize you don't know whether you're investigating history or participating in the creation of a legend. And somewhere out there, in the noise between fact and rumor, a silent ship keeps sailing. Because as long as you can't prove what happened, your imagination will.